I'm breathing underwater, I'm weightless through space. I'm soaring like an eagle all over this place. Creatures most will never see are waiting there to look at me, and all I gotta do is breathe underwater. We begin in a private plane looking at two guys that I don't think could possibly be more opposite.
This is your target. Conditions are ideal. Low local overcast and a wind drift of less than 1 knot. Are you ready?
We are approaching position. Jump in 15 seconds.
We don't know who either of them is yet, but it's not hard to sort out that the talking wrinkle is in charge. We watch the other guy jump out of the plane, and the next thing we know, Admiral Nelson is going home for the night.
Admiral.
Who is it?
My name's Cabrillo, sir. I'm an agent for the Office of Naval Intelligence.
Identification?
I'm working in black, nothing on me.
Sorry, Cabrillo, I don't know you.
A man is known by the company he keeps.
State your company.
I work alone.
Cabrillo knows he's being tailed, so he needs to deliver his message and get out of there quick.
Penfield must be stopped.
What?
George W. Penfield. He must not become Secretary of Defense.
You're out of your mind.
Someone will show up at your office tomorrow with a match folder exactly like this. Your secretary is to let that person in to see you at once.
George Penfield is as close to royalty as the United States has. His credentials read like the qualifications for a saint. If the ONI has something on him, they should bring it forward themselves. Why they need Admiral Nelson to do it is a little fuzzy, but one of the first things he'll do is check Cabrillo's story. Turns out the guy's for real. Excuse me, was for real. Since he's the president's nominee and his confirmation is practically a formality, Penfield is getting familiar with the country's capabilities. He's been touring the Seaview and he's about to take a spin in the flying sub.
All green. Flying sub ready for launch.
Start countdown.
Aye, sir. Countdown to launch.
He looks so happy about it, doesn't he? Captain Grain is going to give this guy his money's worth. Supersonic flight above the water, a little flick of the wrist, and they plunge into the water to speed along as nicely as you please. This is a really well done sequence. From the changing angles to the music. It's fun and believable within the Irwin Allen world. I know an awful lot of viewers lost their suspension of disbelief when the flying sub came along, but I thought it was a kick and still do. In a certain technological future, I can see it being developed and used. Honestly, right up to the present day, there's only one thing about it that frustrates me. I don't have one.
Well, to say I'm impressed is an understatement.
Needs to go home and change his shorts would be a little more precise. You don't know how I wish I could show this whole thing. It's one of the most enjoyable sequences I've seen on the show so far. I've mentioned it before, but right around the end of the first season, Henry Kolke, who played Chief Curly, died suddenly of a heart attack. It was a big blow to everyone, but the show must go on, as they say, so let's get to know his replacement, Chief Sharkey.
I'd like to know something.
What?
How come the captain's got that guy up there with him?
Mr. Penfield?
Yeah, him. I thought this thing was supposed to be hush-hush. We never took a civilian up there before.
Well, that's not just another civilian, Chief. That's George W. Penfield, one of the most important men in this country.
Oh, yeah, sure, that Penfield.
The president just nominated him to be our next Secretary of Defense. He's got as much right as anybody to be up there.
In case it's not clear, that means once the Senate confirms him, he's your boss. That's the main thing you need to know.
Kowalski? Come here. You know who that guy is up there with the skipper?
Sure.
Some guy named Penfield. Why?
Some guy named... That's George W. Penfield, the most important man in this country. Look, kid, don't you ever read the papers?
Okay, we've gotten to know Chief Sharkey. It's amazing how much information you can cram between the words of two brief conversations like that.
Help yourself. Hi. And what can I do for you?
That's Angie, Nelson's latest secretary. The way he goes through them, I figure he must be the world's worst boss. Nobody can stand to work for him for more than one episode.
I would like to see Admiral Nelson.
Oh, I'm sorry. All appointments for today have been canceled.
It's okay. Haven't got one anyhow. Matt?
It matches the book that Cabrillo gave him, so this is the person he's been waiting for. He's a little surprised. He wasn't expecting a stewardess with some of the most god-awfully clashing makeup I've ever seen. She is literally hurting my eyes. Whoever did that to her should have to give their paycheck back.
You say your name is Penfield?
Tippy Penfield. And you're right, same Penfield. I'm his daughter.
I admire your father, Miss Penfield.
Most people do. Advisor to the president, world-famous humanitarian. He's quite a man. But I didn't come here to discuss that.
She came here to discuss what kind of monster would name his daughter Tippy. And one other thing.
Prevent my father from becoming Secretary of Defense.
That's ridiculous.
I bet you got a barrel of chuckles last night when that man was killed practically under your nose.
What do you know about that?
Isn't that match folder I brought exactly like the one he gave you? I sent him to you last night because I thought you'd listen to a man like that. I guess I was wrong.
Your man didn't give him much to listen to, just one cryptic statement about stopping Penfield that frankly came out of nowhere and said nothing. How's he supposed to act on that? She wants him to testify at the Senate confirmation hearings. He says, testify to what?
If you had documentary evidence that the appointment of my father could be dangerous, even ruinous to the security of this country, what would you do?
I would go to the Senate, even if I had to ram it down the committee chairman's throat.
I think you mean that. Will you come to Los Angeles with me, right now?
The evidence is hidden in a little independent travel agency. They can go retrieve it. They'll have an easier time of it than he is, mainly because Miss Penfield knows where to look. He doesn't. Then again, if he does that, they might have a difficult time too, especially since the fire had already started back there before he threw that thing. He tries a shot and misses, and we learn that his gadget fires poison darts. Instead of standing there gawking, put the fire out. Our assassin is learning the big drawback to a single-shot weapon. You better not miss. Neither of them will bother putting the fire out. She retrieves something from behind a painting on the wall, and off they go.
Your father?
Do you know the man with him?
That wouldn't be Noah Granton.
He's the man we saw on the jet giving the assassin his orders.
That's right. We're invited down to his place for the weekend. Brought along my home movie camera without telling anyone. I took this from the balcony outside my bedroom. Do you recognize the other man?
It's the man we surprised in the travel agency.
And there's our assassin himself. Clearly, Mr. Grafton is willing to kill to get what he wants, and he's rubbing shoulders with the soon-to-be Secretary of Defense. You have Admiral Nelson's attention, ma'am, because it gets worse. Why does he have a model of it, and what does he intend to do? Now the Admiral is getting angry. You don't mess with his stuff without permission.
Noah Grafton, one of the richest and most hated men in the country.
Why not? He's never made a secret of his sympathy for the cause of the Iron Curtain countries.
What's your father doing with that man?
Now do you begin to understand?
Much to his dismay, yes, he understands. It would seem that nobody really knows Mr. Penfield except his daughter, and from what I can tell, she took her own sweet time speaking up. And when she did, she made it as mysterious and convoluted as possible.
Don't believe it. Penfield and Grafton. There was never any hint of this.
You saw them eyeing you, Sub. How would you like for my father to become Secretary of Defense now? With access to every military secret we own?
He gets the picture. He sends Captain Crane a private message.
What time do you get into Santa Barbara?
ETA is 16:30 hours.
Lee, this is serious. I leave it to your discretion. Make certain that Penfield sees no top security equipment aboard Seaview.
May I ask why, Admiral?
I'll tell you when I can. I want you to maintain radio silence no matter who Penfield might want to call. Is that clear?
Yes, sir, clear.
Very well. End transmission.
Crane is baffled the way he usually is when he gets a message from the Admiral because they're almost always that vague, but he trusts Nelson, so he'll keep Penfield away from the good stuff.
Take this down, Angie. Urgent telegram to the senior senator from Idaho. Respectfully request I be permitted to testify before your committee at tomorrow's afternoon session. Ray, the confirmation of the appointment of George W. Penfield as Secretary of Defense.
Angie will get that right out. Let's keep this on the down low, shall we?
Sources close to the president are particularly shocked, since this marks the first time the retired admiral, head of the Nelson Institute of Marine Research, has ever taken a political stand.
Or not. They're making sure Penfield hasn't heard any of this. He's been going around glad-handing, telling stories, and generally winning the men's admiration. They don't think they'd mind working for this guy.
Grafton has an estate someplace in eastern New Mexico. Find out where it is, get him on the phone. I think it's time we met.
Yes, sir.
At Santa Barbara, the Seaview has made port.
This has been a most informative voyage, Captain. I want to thank you personally.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry about the news that greeted you when we touched port.
And Admiral Nelson. Well, son, if you don't have the hide of a rhinoceros, you don't belong in politics. The Admiral's a rational man. I'm sure he has his own motives.
Regis Toomey may be best known as Uncle Arvide in the movie version of Guys and Dolls. He started out as a musical stage performer and broke into movies around the time that talkies came along. From 1929 to 1985, he was a common sight in movies and later in television. We've seen him previously in The Time Tunnel and the Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea movie. He was never in Superman, which surprises me. He would have been perfect for any of the goons who tried to fight Superman. In fact, he liked playing that kind of character. But he was plenty busy all through the 50s, and I suppose he could only be in so many places at once. Could have been fun, though. Right now, he's a bit of an enigma. The great patriot that everybody loves is in bed with a known asset from the other side. Even Nelson's questions have questions.
Admiral Nelson, how do you do, sir?
Good evening, Mr. Grafton.
To what do I owe this unexpected call, sir?
I wonder if you've heard of my planned testimony against the appointment of George Penfield.
Of course. All the wire services have the story.
And you admire him?
Let's just say that I think Penfield is a man of his word.
Then you think I'm making a mistake.
Indeed I do. One that you will live to regret, I'm afraid.
I do believe that is a threat. We already know he has no scruples, so Admiral Nelson had better watch his back.
Just one thing more, Mr. Grafton. Have you ever actually met Penfield?
I have never met him face to face, no. Is that all, sir?
Yes. Yes, that's all.
And that lie confirms it. I was waiting for the Admiral to show him that picture of the three of them. I guess he's keeping that in reserve for now. Outside, our assassin has gotten past security at the Institute. Watching him do all that one-handed stuff really drives home how out of shape I am. I probably couldn't do that with two hands and a crane. As I said, Nelson needs to watch his back. Wait, he's after Angie? What did she do? Or is she just in the way? Since she's had the most screen time of any of Nelson's secretaries, I had hoped to talk a little about the actress playing her. Her name is Judy Lang. You now know as much as I do. I found nothing. Her acting credits are only 10 years long, and she vanished after that. Her dad was a famous cinematographer, and she has a daughter who acts. Interesting stuff, eh? So, is her character getting killed off so she can collect her pay and go on to the next job? So much for the one-handed stuff. Once again, if your weapon is a single shot, don't miss. And take note of where the mirrors are. He does carry spare darts, but it takes a few seconds to reload. We'll see an extended search and a chase with some MPs, but he'll get away. Admiral Nelson intends to spend the night in his cabin aboard the Seaview, and he wants maximum security.
Well, I don't see any reason why you can't go home. It's been quite a day, hasn't it?
And it's not over yet.
Hi.
You can still go, Angie.
No point in both of us being annoyed beyond measure.
I'm not complaining, mind you, but what was that for?
For following through.
Oh, the testimony.
I know what courage it took.
Thank you. But why did you come back here?
To kiss you, duh.
I had to. You can do me just one more little favor.
Well?
Call it off.
The trip?
Testimony, everything.
Now he's annoyed and confused. She went to all this trouble, got her man killed and everything else to get him to testify, and now she's saying don't do it. Who got to her? Gee, I wonder. She says she's afraid for both of their lives. She came here under orders to make him change his mind. Orders from whom? Again, duh, I wonder. She doubts her father can protect her. She can't even get a hold of him. But nothing is going to change his mind, so she just says, stay alive. And Lefty's job is to make sure he doesn't. He needs to stay off second stories. He's really bad at getting down from them. If you saw the first episode of this series, you might remember that this is exactly how Captain Crane snuck aboard, and when he was done, he ripped the crew a new one for letting him get away with it. I think somebody wasn't listening. Our man slips down the stairs, takes out that patrolling MP, and he's in. Going by the sound it makes, I suspect a CO2 cartridge powers the whole thing, like the pellet guns and BB guns we used to have. Admiral Nelson is asleep in his cabin with his Colt automatic under his pillow, James Bond style. He's a tough customer even with one hand. It'll take them a while to subdue him, but when the Admiral shows up with his Colt, Lefty says, "You win."
Is this the company you were expecting, sir?
You had a busy evening planned, didn't you? Take him to security headquarters for questioning. Sorry to upset your plans. When I fly to Washington in the morning, I'm taking you with me.
Oh, what an exhibit he'll make. Put him with that photo in the film, and both Penfield and Grafton are in deep doo-doo.
Thank you.
The plane isn't that far away, but why walk when you can ride? Soon enough, they're on board and ready to go. Commercial airliners close the door from the inside. What's going on here?
Keep your seats, please, and fasten your belts. We are taxiing to the main boarding area to load our passengers. We expect to be aloft in approximately 15 minutes. Thank you.
Except that's not what's happening. Suddenly, they're in the air.
Coffee, tea, or milk, sir? Must keep your seatbelts fastened until we reach altitude.
Are you telling me she really is a stewardess? Oh, that's what we used to call flight attendants. Then guys started doing the job too, and suddenly steward just didn't sound right. Hence, the flight attendant was born.
I give up. Now, what's your angle this time?
I guess you're thoroughly disgusted with me by now.
That would be one way of putting it. Obviously, this is not a commercial plane.
It's a privately owned jet. Belongs to Noah Grafton. I had to do this. Please understand.
She's just not about to tell you why. She says, I got hold of my father and he'll make sure nothing happens to you. I'm afraid I, for one, don't find that especially reassuring. She says she can't tell him any more, but he knows they're headed for Grafton's estate in New Mexico.
Hi. They told me at the gate you were trying to find me.
Oh, Lee, the Admiral is in danger.
What is it?
Well, the airline called to say that he never boarded the flight.
Well, that's impossible. I put them on that plane myself. We were ducking reporters, and we went to a rear exit, and then I... Wait a minute. Anybody could have been driving that courtesy cart.
They didn't have one of their own people drive it? Everybody at the Institute needs to get a dictionary for Christmas with a certain page dog-eared and the definition of security outlined in bright red. He has Angie track down private flights that took off around that time. It's not hard to zero in on Grafton's jet and its destination.
Look, Lee, I'm not exactly the nosy type, but you never did brief us before we took off. We don't even know where we're headed.
There wasn't time. I'll tell you what I can, but it isn't much more than what you already know.
Which is nothing.
He told them to be armed to the teeth and standing by. They're all up for a mission, but they sometimes like to know what it is.
We're heading for New Mexico, the private estate of a man named Grafton. I have every reason to believe the Admiral's being held there. At least I hope so.
And if he isn't?
Then he's dead.
In essence, gentlemen, you're storming a castle. The owner even calls it Grafton Hall because, as we all know, true greatness is to be found in naming stuff after yourself. Within said Grafton Hall, a new visitor just arrived.
Daddy, thank heaven you got here.
Noah, I'd like a word with you in private.
I won't dare hurt these men.
That's very amusing.
It'd be interesting to know which one of you really gives the orders.
He's already figured it out, but he wants them to say it out loud. Probably for the sake of Miss Naive of 1975.
The man you see before you is nothing.
Oh, a handsome pig of a man, I grant you. That's why I chose him. No, not chose him. Created him.
I wonder what Penfield thinks about being called nothing. Yet he stands there and takes it. And his daughter didn't have a clue until now.
George W. Penfield is a product of my own genius. I picked him out. A man who was the very essence of mediocrity. I trained him, promoted him, until the world accepted him as a leader. It's a delicious irony. I'm the most despised man in this country, and I control its best-loved citizens.
And what does that gain you that you don't already have? It helps him weaken the United States so his real masters on the other side of the world can conquer it eventually. He's the typical rich guy who thinks that because he's rich, he's entitled to decide what happens to all the rest of us. But Admiral Nelson has a fair idea that a rescue party is on the way, and he knows how to give them the best chance. There's one feature of megalomaniacs like Grafton that he understands better than the megalomaniacs do. These guys love to talk. If he can keep him gabbing, they may get out of this. He's explaining to Grafton why he doesn't dare kill him. Any investigation into his death will lead right back here.
You will die in a most plausible way. You accepted a ride to Washington in my private jet. Let's say that en route there was a crash in the mountains. No survivors. I need hardly add the jet will be equipped with a drone pilot.
But don't get any ideas about hacking the plane once it's in the air, because he's going to have Lefty kill the Admiral right now. Penfield, if you're ever going to grow a spine, now would be a good time.
I see you know this man. Undoubtedly he's here to save you. Check outside, see if he brought any friends with him.
Don't bother, I'm alone.
Nobody believes that, least of all Admiral Nelson. He has a good idea who's out there and what they're planning.
How did you get here? The airstrip's fully guarded.
You might say I just dropped in.
It's a shame, Grafton. It'll mean more work for him.
Don't worry. He loves his work.
Why did he do that? So much for Grafton's plan. His own man killed his puppet. True to his nature, Grafton abandons his men and tries to get away. Next time, he should hire somebody who can shoot straight. Grafton forgot something that a lot of people like him forget. Under all the trappings of wealth and importance, he's just another guy. He pees and poops just like we do, and he's vulnerable to the same things the rest of us are, such as germs, and falling, and constipation, and poison darts. See? Just a regular dude. I'm breathing underwater, I'm weightless through space. I'm soaring like an eagle all over this place. Creatures most will never see are waiting there to look at me, and all I gotta do is breathe underwater. You've gotten to know come on. Ready to stand.